Welcome to L&D 360, insights, trends and best practices from learning and development professionals. Hi, I am Virendra Singh Rathod, founder of Udyog Pathshala. At Udyog Pathshala, we design impactful learning programs, executive coaching and mentorship to help organizations and individuals to take their performance to the next level. In this podcast, we bring you some of the brightest minds in L&D space, leaders who have transformed individuals and organizations through powerful strategies. We ask them some of the thought-provoking questions that draw insight from their rich experience so you can apply their wisdom to your own journey. In today's podcast, we have with us Sonal Mahajan. Sonal comes with 17 years of HR experience, specializing in shaping talent and leadership strategies that align with business priorities with people development. In her current organization, she partners with business leaders on workforce planning, talent management, and leadership capability building, playing a pivotal role in creating sustainable talent strategies and strengthening organizational culture. She's passionate about building future-ready organizations. Sonal champions programs that embedded respect and ideation as a core principle, while ensuring learning experiences are highly application-oriented and impactful. Her work spans across talent mapping, leadership journeys, and competency development, always with a focus on inspiring self-reflection, application, and growth. So thank you, Sonal, for joining in for today's podcast. And as you know that this podcast, I've prepared a couple of questions in the context of learning and development. It's a free-flow conversation. So would like to have your insights, your experience, and whatever you feel is relevant. Do share your insights into these questions. So it's a free-flow conversation, and let's begin. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you and share whatever insights that I can share on this vast topic of L&D.
Thank you, Sonal. So the first question is just to start with your journey. So your journey into learning and development. So how you came into the learning and development, and what inspired you to pursue this as a field?
Wow. So I think my journey in learning started on very early when I was working with Wipro, where I was moved to a training team within 6 months of my joining the organization. So that was the first time that I was into that kind of role. I had never even thought of becoming a teacher. It was mostly other dreams that I had while growing up, but teacher was never one of them. So I was very surprised when I was moved into the training team. But ever since then, I've played multiple roles in HR. I think HR is what that drew me to this profession. I wanted to be in the space where we can do something for people development. I think that is what encourages me a lot. How do we find resources, approaches, frameworks that can help people do better than yesterday? And I think that's what kept me in this space for a long time. Though I've been in HR business partner roles, I've worked with startups where I have been the only HR professional. So I've been doing from recruitment to the entire life cycle of an employee, taking care of that. So I think what has kept me here is an opportunity that I've had, or I have, to be able to contribute to people's strategies and how we can make each day meaningful for the employees in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. For stressing on the word of meaningful, because see, today we work with a lot of organizations, and there is a constant pressure in terms of delivering results, innovating, and in this process the learning, because learning takes time. It takes time to build culture, it takes time to process information into an action, and when you have to actually link it with the organization priorities and make it more meaningful for somebody who is coming in and out in the organization, spending 8 to 9 hours in a day. So that word in itself, giving a meaning to somebody's profession, it's wonderful.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So coming to the next question is like, what are your current learning priorities in your current role which you are catering?
There is one very, very big priority that I think is also something that our industry is focusing on is leadership development.
Yeah.
The growth is so fast that we are seeing in the organizations, especially global captive centers, GCCs that we are talking about. The growth is so fast. The expectations from the industry are growing manifold, and to be able to cater to those expectations, to be able to deliver as per what is being expected of us, not only here but internationally, I think there's a lot more that we have to start delivering. And when I say delivering, one thing that has stuck with me is not delivering execution, but delivering value. And that's what people are looking for when they are coming to India and working with or opening their centers in India. They're looking at value because we have a very highly skilled workforce.
Yeah.
We can do a lot of things from here.
Yeah.
And we have proven that over the period of time, and especially with the growth of the industry, we have seen the last 2 decades how IT has grown and how other sectors have grown.
Yeah.
But now we are seeing a shift, as per me, in the way we are being looked at, in the way the expectations are from us. It's not about just delivering projects.
Yeah.
It's about delivering value and how we can do more.
Yeah.
How can we make it more beneficial for whoever we are working with.
Right, absolutely. Now, in the similar context, a lot of organizations focus on leadership development program, and mostly, and some few days back I've written something on this similar space, so I want to know your thoughts also. So leadership program is always positioned with the designation, like if you reach to a certain level in the organization, then organization will open opportunities for leadership development. But today, when there are so much changes are going on, and the best ideas come from the youngest team members, and they don't get an exposure in terms of the leadership. I believe the leadership is it starts at any level. But when it comes to an organization context, yes, there are KPIs related to you have to develop a leader when they reach a certain hierarchy in the organization. But at a personal level, what are your thoughts when it comes to leadership? Like, who should be given access to the leadership development?
That's a very interesting question. So, when industry is growing, it's changing so fast. Expectations are, increasing day by day. According to me, I think these leadership development programs help us enable our leaders to be able to equip their team members with more, right? So if I am, for example, how do I build an environment which is, let's say, psychologically safe for everyone to come and share, for everyone to come and be okay to suggest something new, something different. And that itself can, be a very, it can be an encouraging ground for other folks who probably may not get an access to leadership trainings. So my idea of, or what I think is, it is important that we have level-wise learning approaches, which is what we are doing in our organizations, because every level would have different set of expectations and they need to be addressed accordingly.
Absolutely.
So for example, I'm just giving a very simple example here, that you do a freshers training program. Why is that important in an organization? I mean, colleges are covering a lot of things. However, still many organizations have a specialized program that focuses on transitioning, campus college, or helping people transition with that mindset, because they want to be ready. So there are certain specific competencies that are targeted there. Similarly, as we grow, and as the expectations differ, I think it's very important that those unique needs from each level get addressed, so that then other people are also benefited who are into other levels. So if you are doing, let's say, leadership program for senior leadership, and we are focusing on especially, let's say, topics that are important today, which is change management or adaptive leadership, it's not something that only leaders will be benefited. everybody who works with them will be benefited with whatever they are equipped with.
Right.
Because it will help the leaders to create an environment where they
Right.
can cascade that knowledge
Right.
and make it easier for everyone to kind of be ready
Right.
with what's coming up. I hope
Right.
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
absolutely. Make a lot of sense. I think because see if we don't create the space for others to learn and the most important word you mentioned about like psychological safety. Yeah. It's easy to say psychological safety, but it's extremely difficult to display psychological safety. And we have seen while working with a lot of organization, when people are sitting in the classroom, the first thing they will say, no, the program is excellent, but it is for our bosses. So it clearly, yeah. So it's clearly shows like that maybe there is still a lot of room required to create that space where they are openly, sharing what they feel and creating that space. More important, the space is creating an opportunity for failure, because the fear what we have seen, like especially people who are joining from campus to corporate and those who are freshers, there is so much pressure of performing. Now they see that okay, this is my first job, I need to do best in my my first job, and no, I can't do any mistake. But if there is a leader says okay, it's okay to do mistakes, it's okay to experiment, it's okay, so a lot of pressure goes away. And here I think it's very important role to L&D professional like us to bring this into the limelight and showcase that how it's important.
Absolutely. And I think that's what, like today, I think there's been a change in the way leadership programs are also run.
Yeah.
They are looking at very practical aspects of what is really needed on the job. What are the competencies that are going to be helpful? And they also act as a medium of reinforcing what's important, like you said, right? Psychological safety. If I have to, one thing that we talk a lot about is break the competencies down so that it becomes easier to understand where it can be applied or where it will be visible. So the visible traits, that I think you and I also have talked about on various of our engagements. So psychological safety, right? I do hear sometimes people talking about that team members come for team meetings and they don't talk.
Yeah.
That is something that as managers we should question.
Yeah.
We should try and get an understanding of why is this happening and not let it continue. And these leadership development programs kind of reinforce
Right.
that if this is happening, it's a chance for you to go back to your team members, connect with them and understand. So I see it that way as well. And with a lot of other things, ideation, very important today. So is the ideation happening in your team? Are you creating problem solvers in your team? So leadership development programs, I think, bring these discussions out and give a space to leaders to explore these areas deeper.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Now shifting to another question, which is more related to today, according to you, what are the top trends in L&D which is shaping the workplace today? We have AI and other things, but what do you feel that what are the trends which are shaping today's workforce?
Two that I hear a lot are AI, of course,
Yeah.
the digital literacy and the adoption of AI tools. And second that I'm seeing a lot and I'm hearing a lot is the skill-based development or skill gap analysis or skills transformation, different projects, different names. But these are the two things that I'm hearing a lot, and I think there's a lot that can be done in both these areas. So, AI adoption. I mean, all those tools are there.
Yeah.
We talk about Copilot, we talk about ChatGPT. Those tools now we have access to, and I think now we have to, as L&D professionals, we have to start understanding how can we adopt these tools to make our jobs more effective.
Right.
I think that fear that a lot of people have that AI will replace my jobs, I don't think it's about shrinkage. I think it's about growth.
Yes.
If we look at it like that. Today, simple example, data. I'm putting so much time. There's manual intervention when I'm looking at data. can I take help of these AI tools
Yeah.
to bring better analytics?
Yes. Absolutely.
And then use those analytics to drive better decisions.
Yes.
Can it happen?
Yeah.
Another example, onboarding of freshers.
Yeah.
Today I'm doing 7 steps to onboard freshers. Can I use these digital tools
Yeah.
for a lot of things, right? When somebody is being onboarded, it's not just taking care of onboarding formalities. You have to integrate them into the organization way of working. You have to, there's an assimilation of culture that's happening.
Right.
How do we do all of that?
Right.
Can we use the tools
Right.
to do that?
Yeah.
Right? I think so. That is a discussion which I think needs to start happening. While we also put an emphasis on learning these tools ourselves,
Right.
because if we do not know what these tools can bring, then we will be able to take it forward. So I think learning and then using or thinking of applications of these tools,
Right.
what we can make our, how we can make our tasks more effective. That's one. Another important thing that I feel that should be talked about while we are discussing AI adoption
Yeah.
is the mindset.
Yeah.
I think that mindset is very important.
Right.
I take automation for an example. There are some people who are natural at it and some people not.
Yeah.
Automation is what? Is questioning the current,
Yeah.
is challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
I can say it like that.
Yeah.
Today, this process is taking 5 hours.
Yeah.
Why is it taking 5 hours?
Right.
Can I make it 4 hours? Can I make it 3 hours? So that mindset
Right.
of asking questions, of
Right.
thinking critically,
Right.
of thinking that there could be a better way of,
Right.
I think is a bigger need.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So what I've understood is like triggering that thought process of questioning and then finding a better solution using different methods. Yeah.
Using AI tools,
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
any other framework that I may have, right? There are so many tools, frameworks available.
Right.
And AI, of course, has made the access
Right.
easy
Yes.
to those things, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just a click away.
Yeah.
And I can have the whole Wikipedia right in front of me, or
Yeah.
anything that's available on internet, I can have a snippet of that. So it's the access has become easier.
Right.
But what do I do with that access is still dependent on me,
Right.
and that starts with the mindset.
Right.
So I believe that the trainings on competencies that I also see as future skills, or
Yeah.
much needed today, are, for example, critical thinking, for example, learning agility.
Yeah.
Things are changing so fast,
Right.
even with AI, right?
Right.
I remember when I was working with one of the startups, that time ML had just come, machine learning.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about ML,
Yeah.
and all the recruitment was happening around that. And today I don't hear ML as much.
Yes.
So in just a few years, technology has just changed,
Right.
right? So I think that mindset of learning agility, adaptive mindset is important, and I think critical thinking.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And in the previous question you mentioned about the culture. So my next leading question is related to the culture part. So how do you go about building a strong learning culture in an organization where employees are busy with operations? So a lot of organization want to build a culture, but same time it's like building a plane while flying. So how do you build an organization culture in a super occupied workforce?
So firstly, I think it's a continuous effort.
Yeah.
Okay. And second, I would say it is not a one team's job to create that culture. I think it's an effort by everybody. One of the things that we do is we do not have forced nomination based trainings. So the calendar trainings that are run, which are open programs, are run on self-nomination based, which tells us, and we get good nominations for those trainings, which tells us that people are accountable for their own learning.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I'm always asked by my team members that, why should we not have training hours as goals set up?
Yeah.
You have to finish 8 hours, you have to finish 16 hours. And I probably a few years ago, I would think that it would be a right thing.
Yeah.
But today not sure if it is right, because when I'm putting those 8 hours and 16 hours as a goal, I'm kind of forcing the person, and then the learning is not taken or perceived with an open mind. It is taken as any other tick mark activity. But when you add it in your discussions with people, talk about the development areas and what can be done to improve those development areas, and why in the first place the development areas need to be improved. And the onus then goes on the employee to take care of it, because they want to improve their performance, they want to do better. And that is where I think the one of the steps or one of the branches of continuous learning can be taken care of. Another branch is coaching like environment. And that is where I think the leadership programs come into picture, because managers, I think through those programs and generally in different forums with leaders, there are discussions about developing individuals and how manager or a leader is responsible for giving the opportunities, for giving the environment where his or her team can prosper. And so I think that is another branch of continuous learning culture. Third thing is, this I would take on L&D probably, or HR, where do we understand where the learning is needed? Right? So do we understand the business objectives? Do we understand what are the competencies that are that need the most amount of attention? And then accordingly doing different kinds of programs. One approach fits all doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So a combination of maybe digital learning, facilitator based learning, small bite-sized learnings, virtual programs. So those running on regular basis, because you need reinforcement when you're talking about continuous. So I think a combination of all this and maybe a top-down approach, right? Leaders of the organization themselves talking about how important learning is, what they are learning and how they are learning, and how it is helping each and every one of us. I think a combination of all of this leads to a culture that we may call a continuous.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of organization is this transition, and I see that common pattern, because during COVID, because of and this is what I feel, is because of there's a lot of uncertainty, people went into a zone of exploration of different things, the curiosity of learning why things are happening, and indirectly it has forced or maybe created an opportunity for more of a self-learning. When we enter into classroom, and I've seen with your organization also, a lot of other organization also, people come prepared, people know at least the basic things in place. And today when we see that when they come in the classroom, what are they expecting is a place to throw their ideas, a place to explore the learning. So I think you're right in a way, like the forced training or maybe the focus on learning hours. Today people are aware, okay, and if I need to do better in my job, I need to invest in my learning, I need to do self-learning and other thing. And then an organization is providing that field to play around in that particular a particular framework. So then the accountability shift, and the ownership also shift.
And that's important. One of our leaders says this: you're a master of your own ship, and ship of career. So you're a master of your own ship, which the moment you say it, you will start understanding what it means, that I'm responsible for my own career. Of course, my manager, my leaders would support me, enable me through this journey, but I can't completely put the onus on the other person, right? I need to understand where I need to do better, and then I think the onus on the manager is to have those discussions, have those coaching based or feedback based, development based discussions regularly, so that it leads to development.
Sure. Thank you for sharing. So another question leading into the technology part is like, what do you see as a technology AI and other digital platform playing the future of learning and development. You have spoken about the AI part, but more like how technology will play a more important role in learning and
I
development.
think one of the biggest things that we're seeing is a very customized, needs-based learning that is available to learners. That is available to users. I think that's one of the biggest things. I attended one of the conferences a couple of months ago, and there I came across a portal which blew my mind because it was AI based portal, and it was using AI in such a way that enabled not just the managers but also employees to know what is coming up next or what they can do next. So, we talked about skills, the skills transformation projects. I think in L&D, right? Where does it start? It starts from understanding the business objective. That is, let's say, put somewhere. What are the competencies that will help us achieve that objective? If I know those competencies, then if I have a full-fledged, very well matured competency framework in my organization and a skills framework in my organization, which also tells me the proficiency and the current levels, then I can use AI to understand these are the competencies that are important for me in this year. This is where my people stand on these competencies, which means people who are high can be given these advanced level of trainings. Right? It can directly lead to those trainings. People who are showing, let's say, somewhere average can be led to these kind of training content because it will help them to dwell deeper in those areas. Similarly in skills, right? These are the skills that are coming up, and we're talking about skill-based hiring and skill-based, jobs becoming more skill-based rather than role-based today. So what are the skills that are coming, are important for next 6 months or next 1 year? And then accordingly, I mean, I see something like this happening today, and it makes our jobs so much better, so much more meaningful, as I had said earlier, because our efforts are being put in right
And more specific.
and very specific, very custom and tailored to a person's needs. If let's say I am someone who has been rated low on a competency, and I need to learn that, earlier I would just wait for some training to happen.
Absolutely.
Right? Or I would ask my manager, okay, tell me how do I do it. Today, it's available to us. Okay, my system is guiding me to that learning content. So I think that is one way that as AI is shaping up, or digital transformation is shaping up learning. Another thing that I came across, which is available on LinkedIn Learning, is AI coach. Okay. Very interesting. Sometimes managers have to go and have difficult conversations, or some high-stake conversations with stakeholders. You can actually go on this portal and put in the scenario and have a mock conversation with the coach, where you will get a detailed feedback.
And you get a preparation for the actual
conversation, right? Which otherwise people would be very hesitant to do, or because you will have to do a mock with someone, and sometimes people are hesitant, sometimes people don't have time, or any other reason. If they're doing it, great. But here, you're sitting in front of your system, you're opening the portal, you're going here, and you're practicing, and you're getting a detailed feedback on everything, on fluency, on vocabulary, on what sounded strategic, what didn't sound strategic. This is where I think
I think and it's a complete game changer. Not only in terms of the learning, but in terms of the cost. In the same context, when we approach organization always say, okay, we have set of leaders, we wanted to first assess and then go do a very specific journey for them. We're doing it, but then it's add a lot of man hours, woman hours, cost in terms of designing the journey, execution. But today it just happened in just few clicks.
Right? And see, the visibility that employees are having. It's not just about guiding them to relevant and tailored training content, but it is also with skills, right, or with competency framework, I get a visibility to, if I want to move to let's say I want to move one level up. I have an aspiration of growing in the organization. What do I need to do more?
Right.
I have a visibility of that. And then I have a visibility of training content that was related to that. Right. I also have a visibility of if I want to move cross teams or cross functional, which I'm not saying isn't available in the organization. Of course, you can go to job portals. You can you have your intranet. You can go there. But here it's all available in one place. Else it is all sometimes scattered, or sometimes you have to reach out to people to get that information.
So thank you, Sonal, for sharing. So you have spoken about value, impact a lot in the past conversation, and coming to the most of the organizations, when it comes to L&D as also as a function, in organization context, they ask for an ROI part. And I understand in L&D everything cannot be related to ROI. There are certain hygiene factors, but in the overall organization context, ROI plays an important role. So what frameworks or approaches you use to measure the impact and show values?
So I think a couple of things here to answer this question. One is, like you said, right, for learning to actually provide an ROI is very difficult, because so many things are subjective, so many things are behavioral based. So to address that, I think one of the very important things that I have started doing from last few years is understanding business better. Right? Understanding what they are aiming to achieve, understanding what their challenges are in order to address those objectives. Because if my trainings or if my engagements are not related to that, then I will not be able to show any impact or any value whatsoever. But if they are, over a period of time, if there's a better response in terms of, for example, if managers are able to think long term, if managers are able to show that on a high stake meeting that's happening with senior leaders, they're able to present a solution in a different way, then I think that is what will tell the leaders or the organization that there's been value in what they have done. So I think, understanding business objectives. Second thing is not looking at learnings as a one-time training thing. If you really want an ROI out of it, it cannot be just one training and you will expect results. I think today also when we speak with managers, we say that 8 hours is not going to change anything, right? If you really want results from this training and if you want an impact to be seen, then we have to be very clear of what we are doing. So, while we know the business objectives, what is that one engagement which I normally suggest as a learning journey? Because one-time training is only to help, I think, my immediate needs, right? But if you want a long-term change, then I think a journey works better, because there's a lot more that gets addressed in a learning journey. So, why that learning journey? What is the objective of that learning journey? What will we achieve at the end of this learning journey? How will the behaviors be different by the end of this learning journey? Or what behaviors do I want to see as a success measure of this learning journey? I think these, if we be very clear right from the beginning of my engagement, then I can do a better ROI. It can be done through pre and post. It can be done through something that we do, our action planning presentations, where people pick up areas that they have been working on as a project, and no different project, nothing that they have to do new. They have to pick up from something that they're doing on a regular basis and present that and talk about how learnings help them, or how application of those learnings help them to bring a bigger impact or to make their things more effective. That also is an ROI, where people are able to see that just by applying these 3 tools, I was able to save time, or I was able to improve the skill level of my team, or I was able to get a buy-in from my stakeholders much more easily.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think while a direct ROI may not be always possible, because we are in the behavioral business, but understanding, I think, like I said, the objectives is very important, and just be on that through the journey. Don't let it go before you finish the engagement. And that is why I think the importance of learning journeys is very underrated sometimes.
Absolutely. And you rightly mentioned, like, one is if the engagement is there, business understanding. Most important is the understanding of the business. I think a lot of time we miss on understanding the business in itself, like what actually the nature of work an organization is doing, what people who are behind those roles, what is their actual challenges they are doing. So we were working with an oil and gas company, and they said, okay, we need collaborative team approach. A collaborative team approach is not a difficult topic, but when we went into a more deeper question, like why do you feel that there's no collaborative deeper kind of these things are required. Well, our people spent 6 months, 7 months in completely in desert area, and there is so much, like the temperatures are extreme, the environment is extreme. Then if they're already on, like, they're away from their families, so there are a lot of things. And now when you keep this challenge, what actually the participant on the field is experience, and then you design the program, so it's contextually completely changed. So understanding business, I think, makes a lot of, although the topics remain the same, the titles are same, but the application is completely different when you actually go deeper into understanding everything.
And I think one more thing that I'm realizing, more and more that we're doing is important, is understanding how, for example, collaboration. How does collaboration translate for this person or this group of people that is coming and attending the training, right? Because collaboration also for different people may mean very different, and for different teams may mean very different. Some teams naturally have to be very collaborative because of the kind of work or nature of work, and for them the training would, I think, look at very different way or a different approach of addressing the need, as opposed to people where we're just simply looking for people to come together and
Absolutely. So my second last question, Sonal, to you is, like, you've spoken about this, but in more detail, like what are some of the emerging skills you believe L&D leaders should start preparing employees over next 3 to 5 years?
I strongly feel that few things that are important. One is critical thinking. I think with every change that's coming up, with things changing so rapidly, and with expectations rising, it's very important that we do not get into a mindset that what's happening is all right, or this has been happening for a long time, let it continue. I think we need to challenge that. So we need to think of better ways, we need to think of more effective ways of doing things, and that will require us to think critically. As a culture, maybe Gen Zs are different, but at least our generation or earlier, we were always asked not to ask questions, right? Obey the elders. So questioning doesn't come naturally to a lot of us, and this is a skill that is why it is important that we learn. Another thing is learning agility. I've already spoken why is it important, but I remember there was this one team that we were working with, and they said, every 6 months the tool or the technology that they were working on was changing. So they are learning something and then learning the application of it, and then it changes. So how do I build that learning agility where I know that what I'm working on today may not really be here next year, and then be able to unlearn and relearn or learn something new quickly. I think that's what learning agility will tell me. Resilience, I think, overall, right, is important with, again, the global changes.
Right.
political changes, right? Geopolitical things that are happening. I think it's very important that we resilience is
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, and I think with resilient, I think we have seen this generation is seen so much transition. We have seen transition from TVs to LCDs, from cinemas to OTT. We have seen transition from market crash to the COVID, AI. I think we have naturally built in our DNA the resilient part. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And now my last question. Sorry.
Just one thing, like, we've naturally, of course, we've seen so many changes and we've gotten used to.
Yeah.
But I think very few of us have questioned that, why this
Yeah.
or why that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is important. That maybe I need to rephrase this, but not in a way that why is this change happening, but now that this change is coming up,
Yeah.
how can I embrace this change? What can I do to be able to use this thing better?
Right.
Right? What are the things that are getting impacted because of this? Where can I play a role in making, in transforming
Yeah.
further
Right.
areas, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is very important. Not just accepting and embracing, but also then
Yeah.
taking it further.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. My last question, Sonal, to you is like, in your experience, like, what are the best practices or lessons you would share with other L&D professions who are watching it? Our audience is more from the similar space, who are trainers, coaches, practitioners like you. So what is a message you wanted to share with them to make the learning programs truly impactful? And also, what are the few things they can do to take their career to the next level?
We have moved from information sharing based trainings to application focused trainings. It's like you said, right, sometime back, that before learners come for trainings, they already know things. They already have access to so much information that they are looking for something different. And that different is, okay, there's so much information available. What can I do quickly which can help me become faster at my job?
Yeah.
Or become, better at my job? And that is what application does. So I believe that most of our trainings need to move from, just fun-based, which used to happen a lot in the older days.
Yeah.
I remember trainings ending with high energy, but 2 days later you ask them, what do you remember? And it's hardly anything.
Yeah.
I think we have to completely move away from that.
Yeah.
We have to move away from where there's a lot of knowledge that is shared. People have access to knowledge. People want to know, how do I use this knowledge? And that is what needs to be focused upon. We do 8-hour sessions, we do 6-hour sessions, we do 5-hour, 4-hour sessions, duration no matter what, right? But each and every minute that a participant spends in that session should be related to what can I take this, what from here can I take back to my job?
Yeah.
And can I really take it? If I cannot, remove it from the training. Right? One thing that we have done in our sessions is completely remove introductions.
Yeah, I know.
Because I think introductions, though it may be a warm thing to start with, but as we are establishing, right, that people are coming there to learn. They do not, at least our organization, they are not looking at those 8 hours as a day away from work. So they want their every moment to be valued or, to be valuable. So if you spend 30 minutes, 40 minutes just doing introductions, it's a big chunk of day that's gone doing nothing related to the topic. So I think it's very important that we chart out our day with facilitators that we're working with in a detailed fashion and connect everything back to work. That's one. Second thing is what I said sometime back was learning journeys. I think learning journeys are absolutely powerful. When you're driving some long-term objectives and you're driving some important objectives, I think learning journeys are very important. So that is, I think, instead of looking at 1 day or 2 day of sessions, planning a journey with trainings, with reviews, with peer discussions,
Right.
with leadership discussions, including a whole lot of things and make it a package. I think that works really well. Of course, each organization, depending on their challenges, depending on the time availability, bandwidth,
Right.
these journeys can be customized.
Right.
But I feel that if you're driving some important objectives,
Right.
planning journeys will bring you closer to the results
Right.
as opposed to
Right.
standalone
Right.
templates. And I think a lot of organizations today have moved to journeys kind of way. Third is, and very important, which I have spoken a lot of,
Right.
is understanding business.
Yeah.
I don't think as HR practitioners or as L&D practitioners, we can run our trainings without knowing what kind of business we are in.
Yeah.
I do hear or I do see a lot of young or L&D practitioners who would know everything about the topic that they're covering, but wouldn't know much about the business that they are in. So I think it's very important that we understand the business. We understand how a day is like
Yeah.
in the employee's life,
Fail.
right? So that gives you an access or a visibility of if the day is like this, what are the
Right.
regular tasks
Right.
and what are the challenges, and that helps you design your content better.
Well.
So understanding business,
Right.
and then of course understanding business objectives and what they want to achieve and competencies that are coming up important. But before that, do I understand what my people are doing on a
Right.
day-to-day basis? So I think these three things are very
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And the last point I wanted to emphasize and wanted to share something. When I was I come from a non-HR background, and what motivated me to be in this field, similarly, like how I can choose a profession where I can add value. When I was in this journey of understanding L&D, HR, and one of my mentors, and we were running programs, we were getting results, but few programs were more on the transactional level. So I went to my mentor and I said, no, this is what, programs are good, but then no real impact, and it's not visible. So he made one statement, and this statement still stayed with me. And you might have heard this, but he has added an extended line to that. So he's mentioned like, no, be in the participant shoes, but first remove your shoes. So that statement, every time when we get into a conversation with organization, we spend a lot of time understanding the business. There was a program we were doing for a tire manufacturing company. We went to the mines because there was a particular set of tires which were used only in mines, and they were not getting that kind of a result. But when we went there, we found, okay, what are the challenges the salesperson is facing? They get into the remotest part of mines, are not in the cities. Mines are in the extreme and they are run by politically affluent. So what features, benefit, advantage you will explain to them. So you're very right. It need to go a little deeper into understanding the business, understanding the person, and then co-creating the journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think co-creating is a good word.
Yeah.
Because trainings today are not run independently, right? They are being run to drive very important objectives. Leaders are looking at L&D very differently today, and I see this more as a business partnership rather than just as an enabling function. Because we now do have the power of contributing to the business in a way which we didn't earlier see.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Sonal, for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your insights and experience in this podcast. And I'm sure, and thank you for all the listeners and viewers who are watching and listening this podcast. Do let us know what did you like about this podcast, what kind of questions you want us to ask our guests in the upcoming podcast. So thank you so much for being there. Thank you for listening it, and we see you in our next podcast. Before that, I formally close the podcast. Any last words, Sonal, you want to share with our listeners and viewers?
Thank you so much for having me here. I think some very important and interesting questions you had. So it was good to talk on those. It was good to think on those areas. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you in our next podcast.